Doing some preparation for July 18th, Friday. We're starting off on the yearly. Yesterday we had, I don't know if I'd call that a range expansion day, but we did reach the top of this range that we've been kind of in for the last, call it 2 weeks. The overnight session has been, took a peak above this level. And one of the things with the auction market theory, or maybe not auction market theory, but just a rule, is that you typically don't make all-time highs in the overnight session. So if we don't breach that overnight high today, then that level is going to be less secure, and we should expect to have that level tested here in the coming sessions or so. Takeaway from the yearly chart here is just simply, if this range right here is still going to be valid, and taking the last 2 days in consideration, that these were pretty substantial in terms of how much range we got in just 2 days. I wouldn't be surprised if we had a sideways consolidation day just to give the market a breather. So that's what the yearly's telling us. So this is the overnight session. This is yesterday. This is the overnight session. Fairly balanced, which is good. You've got two-way auction there. We don't really have a lot of potential for any type of shock and awe from the overnight holders, where there's an obvious spot where they're going to get out, just because we did have that balanced auction. I will point out that we have this nice 45-degree angle level because of the distribution, and that should tell us that the low is secure. If sellers were going to step up, they would have stepped up, but they didn't. That level is actually going to be pretty important, because in the what should happen doesn't, the opposite is usually true. So what should happen is this level is secure, the overnight low. If it's not secure, then we should expect the price to traverse the value area from yesterday, maybe potentially right here. I imagine this has got some pretty low volume just on the daily, because price didn't spend much time right here. So that would be the short play. I would say the long is, again, this is all-time highs right here. Overnight session played above that level a little bit. There is no volume, there's no activity above this level. So that means there's not going to be much resistance. So what I'm going to be doing is monitoring this level right here for, if we approach that level with aggression and high delta, and so high delta, high volume, and speed, then I would expect us to break above, and then it's just everything says go long at that point. If we reach that level with low delta, low speed, low volume, I'd expect us to pivot from that level, use that as resistance, and come down. Who knows exactly how far down we would be coming, but that's my anticipation there. On the weekly chart, our other higher time frame chart, my observations from this is that yesterday we had a nice big climb that belonged to the bulls, and now we've got this sideways consolidation action in the overnight session. These low volume nodes right here on the 5 and the 20-day, this is potentially where I'd be participating. So my scenarios for today would be a long and short at these levels. I'm not sure which one price is going to respect more. That's why I have both of them on there. But these two levels here are confluent with, let me look at my other chart. This one is confluent with the RTH high, so yesterday's high. This one is confluent with the overnight low. Again, if that overnight low gets breached with aggression, I would expect us to move lower. That would be that trade. But I have a long and short bias for each of these. That's not ideal, but in this all-time high territory with not much to lean on the left, that's sort of what we're looking at. And I'm going to be determining my bias, long or short, based on cumulative delta at that level, volume at that delta, and how price is reacting to that level. So let's see how it plays out. So this is how the day played out here. We were not able to get above that distribution area on the overnight, and price just fell right through these levels, and then we consolidated below. One thing that I did anticipate was, we do have some strength here because we're in an overall uptrend, and coming back down into the distribution area, that was one of the likely scenarios. And then the question would be by how much? And given the last couple of days, it does make sense that, we needed a quick breather, uh, some sideways consolidation action, which is what we got today. And we didn't traverse the entire value area, but, you think about it, this value area isn't all that, call it readable, just because you've got, call it three distributions. So we did come down to this low volume node right here. And one thing I have noticed is that these low volume nodes tend to be destination points quite frequently. You're going to get more chop inside the larger distribution areas, but one thing you can kind of count on is that price making a decision at a low volume node. The low volume node is nothing more than just there's no volume there. There's nobody's participating. Price will trade away from that level after it gets touched, or trade to that level. Looking at the weekly chart here, this is going to be, here we go, 8:30. You can see basically more of the same. Price just dropped through that first level. The low volume node came down. We had a pullback and tested around 11 o'clock, and then we just continued to fall and consolidated a bit around developing value area high on the weekly. Looking at the execution chart, this is the 3-minute. And really, the day just simply belonged to the Bears. Right at the open here, we had some bullish momentum, or I guess a lot of volume that belonged to the Bulls, but price didn't really go anywhere. So we had a lot of volume without price going anywhere, and that's usually an indication that whichever direction the volume was going to be going, the opposite is probably going to happen. Not sure if I really said that correctly, but essentially what I'm trying to say is like you've got a lot of participation right here. And because the delta is positive, to me, what that says is that the bulls are trying to take over, trying to push price higher, but they just can't. That's getting absorbed by selling pressure. And, if it's getting absorbed by the selling pressure, then at some point the people that are buying, the institutions that are buying, or whoever's playing today, is going to back off, and then the day is going to belong to the opposite side, which in this case would be the Bears. So zooming in here, you've got the open is right here. You've got all that buying delta, pretty significant, honestly, in terms of the delta. But again, that wasn't really met with price breaking out above. That's what you wanted to see. You've got backing down here. This right here is pretty telling to me, and I like this. I like, delta is really, the way I describe it is trying to find out the strength of these moves, the strength of this bar right here. So this is a strong bar, right? Price opened here, closed here. It's a strong bar. It's a strong bar because we have a high delta bar, or a delta bar that is very long, coupled with high volume, right? Then you've got weak selling. You've got lower volume in the selling here relative to what it was in the open. The bars are smaller, so it's weaker. And then the telling part to me is that you've got lots of buying delta right here on those bars. It's these two right here are about the size of the two from the open, but the volume is not. So you have these buyers that are smacking the bid, trying to get price higher, but they just dried up. I mean, this is what, like a third of the volume from the open. So just zooming in, that's sort of what I see. And where a potential entry would be, I guess to me would be, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. Let me take a look at this. So I think there's two things that I notice here. I did you see this kind of trend line I'm using for the delta, where you're sort of in an uptrend right here, and then once it breaks, the kind of waterfalls down there. Well, something that I want to notice specifically on this bar, look at the range of this bar. We damn near come near to the high. I mean, we this is a double top right here, very similar to what we saw on yesterday. Honestly, you see this bar is coupled with this delta bar right here, this price bar, this delta bar. That bar made a double top. This one did not. So not a lot of volume right here, and not a lot of buying delta. So that tells me that it's probably going to belong to the bears just after that. So if I really wanted to, an aggressive entry would have been right here at the prior day high. This is where my low volume node is. That's where you get in, and then price falls, delta falls. I mean, it's just beautiful from then. From then on, no reason to get out of the trade. Another potential entry would be, anywhere in here. You'd get stopped out at some point when price got back into the developing value area. And then you're coming up on like 11 o'clock where it probably wouldn't be making a trade right there. But I do want to go back and replay that sequence because that's fairly obvious there in hindsight. And then in real time, the idea is that we get these reps in like this. We're shooting free throws, getting better at it. So that way in the real time we can identify this very quick. And identifying this really quick in real time is a 3-minute bar. We have 3 minutes to analyze what's happening here, and it wouldn't be all that difficult to be like within 3 minutes be like, wow, price went right up to here, hit that double top, but the delta did not, and we didn't really have a whole lot of volume. Let me start eyeballing shorts, and then you get your Heikin-Ashi shift, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm changing from a blue bar to a white bar, and somewhere in this white bar is where I would want to execute with probably a stop loss above the midpoint right here. I think that's going to be pretty aggressive having it above there, but we are at that point, we are below the developing value area level right here, and which tells me that the day's probably going to be, or at least the short term, it's going to belong to the bears. So nice. I like noticing things like that. It's with the narrative, trying to come up with that with the market profile and the weekly and the daily charts. That's one thing. But then when you zoom in to where you would execute, kind of combining all those different factors, I think this is where the rubber meets the road. Is identifying these for the best entry point given your narrative before the market opens. So that's it. Thanks.